Welcome to RPG Book Club, the podcast where we play a little bit of a video game and talk about how it makes us feel. I am Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Halk.
And I'm Maddy Grace Webben.
And this is a new episode 0. This is our second refresh of it to let you know what's going on around these parts and what you're in for if you want to stick around and check us out as a little trailer. Things are way different than they were in the original episode 0, and they are way different than they were in the second episode 0. So
Speaking of which, Sam, I've been meaning to ask, when was the second episode 0 recorded?
It was recorded after 1 year. So it was after.
Okay. I was just trying to get a vibe. I was trying to get a grasp on exactly how much it changed.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember riffing a bunch in the last one and be like, when you go back and listen, just pretend you don't hear some of the names at the end of every episode and pretend you hear other names instead. But so RPG Book Club is a book club for RPGs. Thank you. You can subscribe online on iTunes.
I can't believe it wasn't taken.
So we've been around for a hot minute. Back when we came on the scene, there were Square Roots, there was Old Games Plus, and there was Dev Game Club. We're the only ones out there besides us. Now there are 1,000 podcasts like us, so we got in at just the right time where everyone else was trying to be clever with their name, and we were able to steal the adhesive bandage of RPG Book Club podcasts.
Yep. And the thing is, you know what? It's good to have a podcast that is exactly what it says on the tin, frankly. Signed, the person who listens to podcasts like The History of Byzantium. You get it. You know exactly what you're getting into. Now, if the person who has the exactly what it says on the tin podcast does a bad job of it, then it's like, it's kind of dumb, because that's the first thing someone's going to find when they want to hear a game where it's What If a Book Club, but with RPGs. But fortunately, we do a great job.
Yes, do. So the main. So if you gotten this far and you're like, sounds great, I'm on board. Where do I start? So we do quote unquote years of programming. They are about 2 years long, but we're in the middle of year 4 right now. But each year is 4 games that are voted on by our donators on our Ko-fi. And they pick between 2 games each time.
Donors.
The word would not show up in my vocabulary.
I forget that word all the time, which is especially funny because considering how often I'm like calling someone on the phone and asking them to like become a donor or something.
Mm-hmm. So they vote between 2 games 4 times a year, and then we play a game to sell out and boost our numbers, and we play something super popular. And then
you don't get to vote on that one.
You don't get to vote on that one. We get to pick what our popular one is. But while we're recording the popular one, we have a big no holds barred best of the rest competition where the donors get to vote on everything that lost for the past year and vote on that, and then we play that game. So it's 6 games per year, but we don't finish them in 2 months, so it's a lot more than a calendar year.
And y'all end up having to play both Septerracore and Anachronox.
That's what I was about to say, yeah. So if your favorite game of all time lost its vote and you're sad, then you can have it win the best of the rest. That way you get to hear us play it. Or if your least favorite game of all time loses the vote and you hate us, then you have another chance to make us play it. In case you're curious, Look, none of our fans have ever said that they hate us and want us to suffer. But first of all, if they did, I would respect that, and that is an allowable part of this podcast. If you want to listen to this podcast because you want to vote on games that suck and make us play them, you can. But unfortunately, some of us are sicko freaks who like things that suck, so you never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, we try to play the games that no one else will, because like every single person will like has opinions on Final Fantasy VII, for instance, but not a lot of people have opinions on Septerra and Anachronox or Hexus Force, though we didn't end up playing that one. But we like to do things that other ones don't, so then we can sell out once a year. So a lot of our listeners have found us because they're like, yeah, I'm huge into noted failure Rogue Galaxy. So I looked at it on Spotify, and y'all were the only people that had played it, and we pride ourselves on that. So if you like RPGs and you like deep cuts, you will probably find stuff around here that you like.
Yeah. If you want to get into the podcast, one thing that you could totally do is you could scan through our seasons and look for your favorites, or you could scan through the seasons and look for like, what the hell is this? I've never even fucking heard of it. You know, Brave Story, New Traveler, for example, great game.
Oh yeah,
and then darn it, what's the one that's not Hexus Force? Septerra. There we go. I spent so much of my life with that game.
I mean, all of the games except Hexus Force are Hexus Force.
Oh gosh! The point is, if you're like, "What the hell is Septerra?" Ooh, buddy, you will find the heck out for a very long amount of episodes, mind you.
I wasn't there for that one, but I listened to some of the episodes, and I was like, "Oh my,
yeah,
oh my goodness!"
It not only is excruciating to play, so there's just like you'll play for like 6 hours and get like 2 cutscenes because the dungeons are just gigantic and your move speed is slow and the battle speed is slower, but also because of a lot of various things, that was our current game for 16 weeks.
Gosh.
So it had a lot of episodes itself. It was excruciating to play, and then like Eli would have to take a week off. Eli is the former host we had at the time. Eli had to take off, so we did something else, and we did like holiday specials and stuff. It was a good chunk of our life.
It was the season of Septerra, like a third of a fucking year. Like it was, and FYI, I think we should introduce ourselves or something.
Yes,
yeah. So I am Sam. The podcast was my idea, and I approached Eli and our former host Michael at work. We work together, and I was like, "You guys like RPGs? We should. We're all men, so therefore we need a podcast, and we should do ours about RPGs." And it was great. And then I called up Maddy, who posted roughly 1 million words on the soundtrack to Xenogears on Facebook one day, and I was like, I bet that she is going to have good thoughts. And
at the time, so Maddy Grace, who at the time was also a dude, so we were doing the whole like 4 dudes podcast thing, you know, like every well, I guess we weren't all white guys at least, but you know, but we were doing, and we weren't all straight, so that's nice. But it was just like, oh yeah, another 4 millennial guys making a podcast. Although I didn't jump in until a couple episodes in because of life changes and such.
And things have been great and volatile since then.
Oh boy!
So our original episode 0, we had to record 3 times. The first time was just bad because it was our first time recording. The second time, my newborn baby Scarlett was crying, and I had to like hush her to sleep while we were recording, and so the audio wasn't very good. She's 5 going on 6 now, which is fucking nuts.
Babies turn into not babies. It's weird.
It's fucking weird. And now I have another one, so I have kids and I love them, and I'm a big ass nerd, as you could guess by me starting a podcast about RPGs. But I'm also like a of all of us here, I also am the nerd in the way that like you would get picked on in high school nerd, not just enjoyer of genre content.
I mean,
also,
you get picked on the podcast,
I
nerd.
do. I really do. But yeah, I don't know. I played in a pop punk band for most of the podcast, but I don't do that anymore. Nowadays, because we haven't gotten into the 3 other podcasts that are in this podcast feed, so I don't have time to do anything else besides this podcast. This is my social life now. What about what about you, Maddy? We'll go in tenure order.
So, hello, my name is Maddy Grace. I have been involved in the podcast since day one, or not day one, since like day 30 or something. If you listen to the old episodes, the person whose name isn't one of the ones that Sam just mentioned is me. And I don't know. I'm not going to be a whole fucking life story here, but I'm a trans woman, 30 years old, living in Oakland, California. I've been living here for about 4 years now. My life has gone through many, many wild roller coasters of changes that you'll hear if you decide to listen to the pod from start to finish, which honestly is not a bad decision. I think that we intentionally plan this thing to have kind of arcs and stuff. Like, we really do that on purpose a lot. Like, we even have a recurring, we even had a joke, like a joke in game selection that we planned like a year in advance or more, where we intentionally set things up so that we would have to get to pick certain games. Anyway, so you'll get to hear all that. So trans girl, live in Oakland, California. I am a UPS delivery driver, which is a very new thing. I've been working at the company for a year, and I just started driving this week. In fact, just today was the first time I drove the car all by myself for an entire day. So you caught me right at the beginning of yet another tempestuous life change. I'm so tired. I'm tired every episode. That's my fun bit. I have real big feelings about RPGs. I grew up with them. It's funny, if I were to list my top 10 games of all time, I couldn't tell you how many of them would be JRPGs. It actually might not be a lot of them, especially if I list the top 20. But but if you just think about how much time I spend thinking about them, how much time I spend playing them, even if we account for the fact that they are long games, even if we like make a curve to discount that, even like I can't say anything other than they're my favorite video game genre. Like even that was even before we made this goddamn podcast. They're a wonderful video game genre, and I've got about 10 blazillion thoughts about them. Here's my number one thought. If you feel like play Dragon Quest. That's my number one thought.
Play Dragon Quest.
Dragon Quest started the JRPG genre, and I also think that I don't think that you understand JRPGs if you haven't played Dragon Quest. I say that because I didn't understand JRPGs until I played Dragon Quest, and also everyone I've talked to who I've made play Dragon Quest has said that they understand JRPGs now after playing Dragon Quest. For example, Sam.
Yes.
So I love games that are very formalistic, games that deal with structure and form, sort of art in the abstract. I do care about plots and characters and stuff like that, but really, I really like just the way these things are put together, you know, the way that they use their numbers and their level design and their pacing and all this stuff to tell a story that isn't like a capital S story, but more like to express a vibe of sorts, you might say. And it's really cool. What are my favorites? Who even fucking knows? I don't know. Final Fantasy X maybe, or Dragon Quest 7, or it's funny, those are both like, you know, popular game series, but I don't even know. You know, I love all kinds of games. I love hollering about them for very, very long periods of time, and I can probably spin a Marxist interpretation out of just about anything. But that's not because it's like you can find anything if you're looking hard enough for it. It's because a lot of the recurring themes of RPGs are very, very, very easy to give very good Marxist interpretations of. Speaking of which, I am a big time capital S socialist who reads a bunch of books and has a lot of meetings and it helps a lot, does a lot of things involving strikes and labor and election stuff. Actually, I don't do elections. I do much labor right now. I've never been on strike myself, although, I do work at UPS, and our contract is up in about a year and a half. So so who knows, that'll be fun. But anyway, I spent all last week planning to help turn people out for a big teacher strike that happened today, and then it turns out I could not participate in it because it turns out that I started driving. So I simply drove past the teachers and honked my horn and gave them a fist. The reason I shared that story about something that happened to me today is because it kind of explains who I am as a person. So yes. I don't play as many video games nowadays. I have very little time to play them. I mostly just play RPG Book Club. That's pretty much it. I always think, man, it'd be so cool if I played FF14 again. God, imagine. What else was I going to say? God damn it, I just spaced out. And then about a year ago, I dabbled in streaming, and I always think, gosh, what if I did streaming again? That was so much fun. But I think for the foreseeable future, I'm probably just going to be committing spending most of my time delivering packages or furthering the class struggle, and then thinking about video games a whole lot, and then playing them less than that. So that's me.
What about you, Bernard? Who the fuck are you?
I am Bernard. I live in the Austin, Texas area. I love RPGs, especially JRPGs, a whole lot. My favorites are like Lost Odyssey and the Dragon Quest series and the Final Fantasy series, but also the Megami Tensei series I absolutely love. There's still a ton of them I haven't played because they release a fucking million of those games and they're still making more. So
there's too many. A big opinion on this podcast that we all, at least me and Bernard shared, that there are too many video games and there should be fewer of them.
Yep.
There should.
Even if they're really good, I don't give a shit.
For context for a lot of things I say, you should know that I am a gay man, I am fat, and I have red hair. If you don't know those three things about me, a lot of my jokes probably won't make sense.
Bernard is a very, very funny person, by the way.
Yes.
If you want to give a quick thing of like what's good about each person, I think Bernard's main thing is that he's legitimately extremely funny.
Yes.
Unlike me, who mostly traffics in like groaners, right? And insanely elaborate jokes that I actually do think are hilarious, but like funny in the kind of like you think in your brain that's funny kind of way. And Sam's thing, first of all, Sam's a great host. It's hard to host a podcast. Hard to be the leader of a podcast, and you do an excellent job of it, and you help steer the ship. But also, you have a very lovely voice. Well, okay, so does Bernard. Everyone but me, basically. And also, frankly, Sam gets a lot of mileage out of being like a relatively normal person who functions and has a family and all that shit that the two of us sickos don't have, or because we can't and or won't. That goes a long way. We welcome freaks and weirdos and idiots and dipshits, and we also welcome normal people who just like to have a normal life and play video games. Both of those are great. I guess I never said what my deal is. What's my deal? What's the good thing about me for this podcast?
So
wow, okay, that was a bit too much silence.
Most of that was my speech impediment, but I think my favorite thing that Maddy brings to the table is like the way you wield like references in a way that is very clever. Not necessarily funny, but philosophical and like artsy in a way. And so like every time you're on notes, I love fucking listening to it because
well,
it's
like it's like I always say,
in
my younger and more vulnerable years, my dad gave me some advice, and I've just been turning it over in my mind ever since.
I get that joke now because I used that line on the thingy we were working on the other day.
Thank you, Sam. It's very nice of you to say. Oh, you're wrong. My best quality is is the fact that I will never use a guide or cheat codes or take advice, and I will always subject myself to the worst fucking shit. Doesn't matter how bad the game is, I am not turning on the Go Faster cheat. I'm not installing mods. I'm gonna play this garbage, and I'm gonna probably like it.
Yeah.
Someone's got to.
When we were playing the aforementioned Septerracore and Maddy was doing the aforementioned streaming, she went the wrong way, and the dungeons are huge and the battles are slow, and I like checked in at the beginning of her stream like, hey, good luck, have a great time tonight. I came back like 6 hours later and she had made literally zero progress for the week, and I'm like, we're not recording tomorrow. It's fine. we can postpone. This is the wrong thing.
Are there any other like logistical details we need to share with people, or can we just I don't know, maybe give like a recommendation of what our favorite seasons are? Because I remember we did that last time.
Other logistical things that we have. So on our Ko-Fi, we have a tip jar that fills up periodically. When it fills up, we unlock either a long cast, which is a game that's way too long to play in the main series. So right now we're working through the Final Fantasy 13 trilogy. So playing Lightning Story from beginning to end is like 16 plus episodes, way too long for a normal thing. That's what Longcast is for. And we unlock those in chunks only because we've played trilogies for both of them.
Yeah, it's funny. The idea was to play really long games, but so far we've just played 2 trilogies of games, but same difference. We're playing them all at once, you know?
I will not entertain the idea that .hack GU is multiple games. It's one game that had a marketing
gimmick. That they managed to sell 4 times. Yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah. And the next one of those that we're working on currently right now on April 29th, 2022 is Metal Gear Solid for our next shortcast, and Dragon Quest 7 for our next longcast. So we'll have to decide if we're doing like a really big bucket to fill it up, and then we do all of Dragon Quest 7 just like for the next year of our life, or if we break it up into chunks. Who knows? We got to decide that later. But that's our like second tier podcast. Then our third tier podcast is Book Club no Kuseki, which is the longest of all goddamn longcasts in the history of video gaming. The longest cast. Because if you're not familiar with the Kuseki, the Legend of Heroes Trails series, they're one series and they're up to 12 games, and every game is important. And not in the way that like Kingdom Hearts is up to a whole bunch. It's like each of these games is narratively dense and good, and sequels, sidequels, interquels to each other the whole way through. And we decided to play all of them. And so that one is a Ko-Fi exclusive, timed exclusive. So if you go and get caught up on those and you want a couple more, there will be more on the Ko-Fi for those. And then our last tier of podcast is my pet project, because I want to play games that aren't just our pod game, and I can spin whatever game I'm playing to fit this last podcast. But it's the JRPG canon, which is it's a lot closer to reviews than what we do on our normal book club episodes, but it's like hyper focused on how the game plays for the first chunk of it. So like in the Dragon Quest episode, which we haven't recorded yet, it would focus on the like the interesting choice in Dragon Quest is when do you turn back and when do you keep going and those sorts of things.
That's an original concept invented by me in an essay I wrote 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's awesome because
that's literally an insight that I invented.
I read that.
It's if you're thinking I haven't heard anyone say that before. Yeah.
Yeah. And here next week or week after, Maddy gets to boil that article down into a 30-minute podcast because we'll be recording the JRPG canon episode.
I'm really excited about that series. Obviously, and not just like narcissism, because like, yeah, Dragon Quest is going to be a lot of me hollering, but like, I think a lot of us have something to contribute here. And we talk so much. I think that in this podcast, we have a very particular way of looking at RPGs, and that does come from like a lot of knowledge that comes from just having played a gazillion of them and thought about them so long, and being able to explain our thought process of what RPGs are and how they work outside the context of a specific, playing a game every goddamn week. Hopefully it'll be super educational and maybe people will really learn something, and maybe people will be able to appreciate games in a different way or deepen their existing appreciation.
Yeah, and so if you're hearing this and you're like, wow, this sounds great, are you going to do an episode on blah? The answer is probably, and if you want me to do it fast, you can commission those episodes on the Ko-Fi. So you can throw me just $20, which is not a lot of money at all. I think it's $20. If it's not, I'm changing it to $20 because I don't want to re-record this episode. So you can just throw me $20 and I'll add that to the pile, and it'll come sooner than later. My pile is kind of big right now because a lot of people have already taken me up on it. But so if your absolute favorite game is Ghost of the White Lion or Legend of Ghost Lion or whatever the fuck that game is called,
that game looks so fucking good. Oh my god, I want to play that game really bad. So you better make me.
It looks good because it's Dragon Quest 1.
Yeah,
with the transformation gimmick, and
it's got really nice graphics, which is the most important part of video games.
It's true. Yeah. So yeah, that's the fourth tier, and then the bottom tier is we just have regular commissioned episodes to get the whole group on and do a basically a short cast on, and so those have all only been super fucking weird suggestions so far. Our first one was a visual novel. We did the chapter 1 of Higurashi, loved it. Our second one was Dandy Dungeon, which is a mobile puzzle game that loves JRPGs more than it is an RPG itself. And then the third one we did was SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom, because we're shills and we'll do whatever the money tells us to do. So if you want us to,
and also, yeah, we've gone off brand not playing RPGs because people told us to and we're shills, but we've also just chosen to do it, like when we played Halo or like when we played Danganronpa. Look, it's our podcast and we can do whatever the hell we want with it.
Yeah, we can say anything as an RPG.
Go fuck yourself. Stop listening.
So yeah, that's kind of all the things. If you're on Apple Podcast or Overcast or other ones that divide into series, those are the only ones that I've ever used that divide into seasons. I mean, the 900 block is all the long cast stuff. The 800 block is all the Kaseki stuff, and then starting at 0 is all of the main podcasts, and JRPG canons are just bonus episodes. Same with commissioned episodes. So if you want to understand the shit that you're seeing, that's what all of that is. It makes it more organized to go back and binge, a little unorganized to listen weekly. So just listen to everything and then it'll be better for you.
That's right.
But yeah, so Bernard, as the new person, you can go first. If you were to pitch RPG Book Club to someone and tell them a particular season to go back and listen to. Which season would you pick?
Oh, good golly.
Yeah, it's a lot harder than it used to be because there's so many more of them.
Yeah, and I'm not familiar with all of them because I started on this being a regular host of this podcast on the previous game, Suikoden 2. I had been a frequent guest, and I had been on the Longcast episodes, and I'd been on the Book Club no Kiseki episodes, but the last game, Suikoden 2, was when I became an official co-host on the main series. I seem to remember we had a lot of fun playing East 1 and 2. I was on that one. Because
yeah, we did. I who knows if the podcast itself was great. I mean, probably was, but boy, what great games.
Yes.
East 1 and 2 is also up there with Dragon Quest 1 on it made me understand RPGs better. So
yeah, I'd probably have quality and taste if I'd played it 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
Also, if you want to hear me try and explain what's happening in extremely abstract cutscenes, you could go and listen to the Longcast series on .hack Do You.
Oh yeah, that's fun.
We had a lot of fun with that. More fun talking about it than playing it, I think. I give that game a lot of shit, but I sort of like it.
That's a good two combos because there's two different things that we do in this game, on this podcast. I feel like one type of great series is the kind where we're just pogging out of our minds because the game is so goddamn good. I don't think any of us expected East to be as good as it was, and we were just jaw on the floor so you get to hear all that positivity of us just like losing our shit, right? But also a series where we're critiquing and talking about shit that kind of sucks, but also having a fun time anyway, and that's a different kind of vibe, and they're both good.
What about you, Maddy? Which one? What would you?
Oh boy, it's a really, really tough question. I don't even know what video games I've ever played in my life. No, I'll drop two. The first one I'm going to drop is honestly the Final Fantasy 13 trilogy. It's long cast, so it's not part of our normal series, and it's ongoing. But Final Fantasy 13, the first and the second, I think all of us have been having a fantastic time playing them. Turns out they're way better than anyone, including us, had given them credit for. So revisiting them was a really big deal. And I'm taking over with note-taking for the third one, and hopefully I'm going to do a good job with it. We're only one episode in. But yeah, honestly, even though it's like the most recent thing we've been doing, it's really good. Both the game and I think our playing of it are just really top-notch. I've been really proud of the work we've been doing with that. Second one, I want to go ahead and recommend, I'm going to give sort of a little bit of a cheat answer, but our first season, we did a thing called Auto by RPGs, which is a hell of a name that Sam invented, where we all played a game that was really important to us in whatever way we decided to interpret that sentence. And all of them are really good, and they let the person tell a lot about, you get to learn about that person via the game that they chose. And they were all very, very good. I quite enjoyed all of them. And mine was Xenogears. Xenogears is a singular as hell game. You can, if you listen to that series, you'll hear things such as me going through the aftermath of a horrendous divorce. You'll hear things like me coming out as transgender in the finale episode. It was my game, by the way. You'll hear things such as all of us struggling with certain parts of the game and being like, holy shit, how are these cutscenes that long? You'll hear things such as the format of the podcast ceasing to work so bad that we had to change it. After Xenogears, we radically re-envisioned the way that we do the podcast because it didn't work anymore because Xenogears broke us. And you
technically,
also
what technically broke us was the second episode of Legend of Dragoon, because me and you just talked about the architecture in Lohan in Legend of Dragoon for about 2 hours.
Oh, was that when we changed it? Okay. Well, at any rate, we definitely stretched the podcast format to the breaking point, though. Episodes got longer and longer. Not totally our fault, though. I would say it's largely the game's fault, frankly, and us failing to properly adapt. But it's a great series about a great game. It's a very textured and interesting and weird series because of what's going on in our lives about a very textured and interesting and weird game. So that's my second recommendation, is the Xenogears series, as well as all the auto by RPGs, frankly.
There's going to be a new one eventually for me.
Yes.
After we finish this year, we get to do an auto by RPG for me.
Yeah,
we already did Lost Odyssey.
No, I have other games that I like.
I know.
But also, I thought another one that might be interesting to go listen to is, we've mentioned it, Anachronox. I think that one would be fun because I actually joined Anachronox partway through because Eli had to step out for some reason. So I was like, oh my gosh, I've been listening to y'all play Anachronox. It sounds so good. I'm going to play the whole game up to the point where y'all are at. And then I'm going to join as a guest host. It's going to be great. And then after the point where I joined, the game started sucking.
I'm getting real bad. Like, lost all of the momentum that it had of being good.
Total nosedive. The second you jumped in.
Yeah. So that was interesting. But Anachronox was fun to talk about. It's a really interesting game.
Yeah. So since Maddy already honorable mentioned all of the auto by RPGs, and I was going to say Legend of Dragoon, the reason I was going to say it is because Eli actually loved the game, and Eli was our like, he would bring us down for me and Maddy being like reveling in the bullshit. Eli was like, no, bullshit is bullshit, and would bring us back down to earth, and it was awesome for that. But every time Eli actually liked a game, it made the podcast like awesome, because Eli was, instead of bitching about ABC XYZ and then us having to defend it and thus content being created, it would just be a big happy like time, and it felt like hanging out with your friends the way that Legend of Dragoon feels like hanging out with your friends. And it's a real good season. And that's when we started Min Moms, and Min Moms is a great section. Memorable moments.
Eli has a very funny thing about him, which is that he always has a really hot and spicy take in this group by thinking that things that are bad and not liking them.
Yeah, weird. Who could ever do that?
Ridiculous opinion, frankly.
So then, similar vibes, similar reasons. Lost Odyssey. Eli actually he had something going on at the time. I think he had like a big vacation either coming up or during or something. So he just watched the Let's Play for it. But the Lost Odyssey is so good and like amazing, and everyone who hasn't played it should play it. And Lost Odyssey is so freaking good, and we didn't even have time to go into the like 3 novels worth of poetry that's in that game, and
which is like quote unquote the best part. And I don't say quote unquote because I disagree even, but that does also undercut the fact that the actual game is also great.
Yes. And it just was it was so amazing. And the fact that one of the best games that we've played is an Xbox 360 exclusive just is weird, and I love it for that.
Lost Odyssey is my favorite JRPG of all time, and if you have an Xbox One or an Xbox Series console, it is backwards compatible. You can get it digitally. It's often on sale. You should play it.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of those rare, unpopular old JRPGs that's still cheap because no one actually. It's not like, oh, it's a hidden gem that's still hidden. So people aren't like, oh, we all missed the boat on Bot and Kaitos, and so now that's going to be a $65 loose game. It's like, no one still knows about and wants to play Lost Odyssey. So even if you have to get it on disc, it's like $10 most places. So love it. Best game we've played. The other one that I would pick, I would probably pick either Persona 3 or Danganronpa, because we get to trans rage in both of those, and I feel that defines us as a podcast. So if you want to know the shit that we get up to and who we are as a person, the Persona 3 season and the Danganronpa season, we go heavy into the issues, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, this podcast is basically just a trans guy and a trans girl and a very, very eggy host. Let's be real here. And Bernard.
Yeah. So those would be good. I also like basically every bonus game we've played. I don't think there's a bonus episode that I didn't be like, oh my god, that was the best 3-hour RPG I've ever played. Almost every single one of them is phenomenal.
I was on this one, so it comes to mind for me, but Parasite Eve was really fun. Our holiday special.
Yeah. So good. If you're a small game developer, like a one-person indie dev or whatever, and you made some little game, I mean, I guess it can be big, but it'd be better if it's little. You made some little RPG that takes like an hour to play or 5 hours or something like that, and you want us to play it on this podcast. I mean, we've never just played a game for no reason because someone asked us to, for no reason. But it's very easy to find a reason, such as you gave us $20 to commission it, or for free. We like to do holiday games, like Christmas games, Halloween games, etc. So, like, if you can just convince us that we want to play your game for no reason, then we fucking will. We really like to support lesser known shit, indies and stuff like that. We'll definitely be nice. If we have serious critiques, we won't say them publicly to anyone who's listening. Although so far, most of what we've played, we've been like, who cares about critiques? This is really good, and we enjoy the hell out of it, you know. But like I don't know how many people will necessarily fit this description listening to this, but like seriously, reach out to us. It probably does not take very much to get us to play your game on this pod without any expense to you. Especially if it takes like an hour to play or something like that. We haven't ever yeah, maybe we'll say no, but we haven't. That hasn't ever happened. So feel free.
Yeah, and along those lines, another episode to check out is me and Maddy played 3 30-minute or less RPGs for a bonus episode one time. We played the demo for Lent, we played Escape Chasm by Timmy, and we played Melon Journey. And all 3 of those games were like, oh my god, this is amazing. And I know Melon Journey 2 either just came out or is coming out soon, and I'm very excited for it. But that's the podcast. So if you liked this, go listen. There's a lot of them to listen to, and tell us your favorites. And if you head on over to our website at www.rpgbook.club, it'll bring you to the Ko-Fi where you can donate, which is awesome. But it also has a link to our Discord. And one of my favorite things about this podcast has been that our Discord has, like, I have a lot of people I consider friends that I've met through the Discord, and that's really cool. And if you need friends, should come and be ours, because we're cool people, and we will. but within 30 minutes of you showing up in the Discord, we will convince you to go to the Apple App Store and download Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3, play them in a row, and then come back, because that's what seems to always happen. Yeah. On the Ko-Fi, we have membership tiers. We have the $1 a month tier, where if you make any donation of $1 or more, you can get access to the Book Club no Kaseki episodes a month before everyone else, and you can vote on whatever our next game is going to be. Then at the $5 tier, we shout out everyone's names. I wasn't going to do it today, but I'm doing it now anyways. I feel I'm contractually obligated to.
Fuck it. We like these people. They're
do
good.
like these people. So our $5 tier, all of our tiers are themed after Dragon Quest, in case you haven't noticed that we like Dragon Quest around here. So our $5 tier is called Warriors, and our warriors are Cerebral Wind, Anthony Lerma, Vimke, Jfro Prime, Eli Bergmas, Doho, and Tuxedo Kin. And at $20 a month, we will shill whatever you want us to. And we only have one luminary tiered person currently, and their name is Carr, and they are a dentist. So their shill is a shill for your human body. And they say to brush your teeth twice a day, especially before bed. So if you want to help support us, that's a super easy way to do it. And we'll say whatever you want us to, of 2 sentences or less, at the $20 tier. So, yeah, thanks for checking us out. If this is the first thing you're checking out, hopefully you find some stuff that you like, and hope to see you around for RPG Book Club. I've been Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Hauk.
And I'm Maddy Grace Webman.
Toodaloo, folks.